Idyllic islands in the middle of nowhere, home to the greatest variety of marine species on the entire planet. More than 700 different types of coral, both hard and soft, in countless shapes, sizes, and colors. Airplanes downed in battle during World War II. Ancestral ceremonies revealing age-old cultural mysteries. The people here call it Raya Ampat. But for us, this part of Indonesia will always be the Garden of Eden lost.
Please read carefully. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya dan selamat menikmati penerbangan ini. Thank you for your attention and have a nice flight.
With each passing day, the Garden of Eden grows ever more distant, for we're destroying nature at a fevered pace. Only a few spots on planet Earth still retain a semblance of pristine conservation. A few isolated places far away from civilization. Blue Secret is our quest to discover these places and explore them. To reach one of them, we fly for 72 hours from airport to airport to reach this place located on the coast of New Guinea. We reach the town of Sorong, in Irian Jaya, located on the northeast side of the great island of New Guinea, part of Indonesia. This little town, so far off the beaten track, greeted us with a wondrous exotic charm. Life has a different rhythm here. The word time doesn't even exist. The open-air market offers a marvelous panoply of colors and fragrant goods. Where humans tread, pollution and refuse follow. Even this beautiful parrot has lost the gleam on its fine feathers. Some of the Indonesian Muslim women hide their faces behind their umbrellas from our most indiscreet camera, which is eager to discover, capture, and put this faraway world on display. One can get a fine introduction to this town's lifestyle, the customs of its people, and especially their culinary traditions at the market. Of course, there would be coconuts. And a fine variety of tubers, different kinds of sweet potatoes and taro, a common equatorial staple used to make flour. Mangoes, papayas, and other tropical fruit lend a touch of color and sweetness to the atmosphere. Garlic and red or hot chilies give us an idea of how keen these people are on spicy, strong flavors. But of course, we are in the Spice Islands, so these are to be expected. The portable fish stand provided us with a kind of foreshadowing of what we would find later, but alive and underwater. The ocean's harvest was on marvelous display, very neatly arranged indeed. When we saw this small shark, we could hardly have imagined the nasty surprise we'd receive later when we went diving. Its friendly neighbor compelled us to take a picture of this marvelous fish, which had just been netted moments ago. And then there's the joke or two with another fish. We left the market so we could get an early start on our adventure. We set course for the approximately 600 islands of the practically unknown archipelago called Rayampat. We were in search of some of the most unexplored islands, what we'd been calling the Islands of Eden Lost, places where nature and wildlife still thrived in all their primeval grandiosity. Situated between four bigger islands, those of Batan, Waigeo, and Gam to the north, and right next to the great island of Misool, was our base camp on the beautiful island of Cree. This would be our headquarters, our home. From here, we would venture out in search of the new sensations that awaited us, a world of mysterious underwater wonders and astonishing beings. These stilt huts would serve as home for a while. Of course, we'd have to cart our heavy cameras with us everywhere we went. The island of Cree is a very serene paradise. The locals greeted us heartily. Only 7,700 people are known to live in this vast area, and most of the people included in the census are concentrated on the larger islands. The majority of the other 600 islands are uninhabited. We first explored the islets off Pham Island, which boasts the incredible phenomenon we call Balm Garden. It's a group of fantasy isles highlighted by the absolutely unforgettable Sorrido Bay. This captivating area is made up of a magical labyrinth of oddly eroded cone-shaped isles smothered by a coat of dense plant life. It was given its unofficial name just a few years ago by the relentless explorers and seafarers of these climes, Maximo and Anita Amer. It was their daughter who coined the name Balm Garden. The inland limestone hills have yet to be explored, so surely there are more than one new species just waiting to be discovered. We had made our way to Bethany. The people here are very friendly. The Papuans have somewhat less pure facial features than many other Pacific Islanders as a result of the cultural mix that brought together Melanesians, Indonesians, and possibly Japanese after World War II. We found these everlasting anthropomorphic figures done by the town sculptor Alif Korere. The children greeted us at their school with truly beautiful, joyously innocent, curious, and above all, smiley little faces. Their teacher asked them to sing some songs for us. The children are our hope for a better future. The activities and games of these particular little tots didn't have much in common with those seen in big cities. But after the fun was over, it was time to head out to sea. Our canoe had a kind of stabilizing device, a very distinctive characteristic of many South Seas boats. The balance beam is also used as an improvised trampoline. Swimming is the most popular sport in these parts. And diving is a true pleasure here, for you can see how beautiful the sea bottom is and find hidden treasure. Islanders here love to dive for seashells, for example, which they can sell to tourists. Now that we were surrounded by the crystal clear waters we traveled so far to find, we said goodbye to our new friends and set our sights on discovering the secrets of the fabulous expanse of ocean gracing the shores of these astonishing islands. Eden Lost had taken us back to the dawn of time, to the very origin of life as it emerged from the sea. Below our huts, we discovered a lush, gently rolling emerald-colored meadow of Poseidonia seaweed, considered by many to be an elixir of longevity for many living beings, especially sea turtles. However, we didn't see any sea turtles. What we did see under our stilt house was a very dangerous sea snake related to the cobra, whose deadly venom is one of the most powerful animal poisons on the planet. These snakes are not generally aggressive, especially underwater. But this beautiful specimen was curious about us and our cameras. It seemed to get a bit nervous, in fact aggressive even, when it saw its reflection in our camera lens and perhaps thought it had come face to face with an adversary. Whatever the case, it appeared to mistake Leandro's hand for its foe, and he had to let go of the camera. Leandro wisely bailed out to avoid getting bitten, before bravely recovering the camera and going back to work. When the frightened snake turned on another of our colleagues, she was quick to take refuge behind a stilt. Yet death had caressed us with such smooth skin, and we simply watched as the sinuous form swam away. The pylons of our stilt house make for good hiding places. At least this crab seems to think they do. Underneath our picturesque little houses, in the very shallow water, we were privy to the unusual behavior of this magnificent shoal of tiny fish. When these creatures feel threatened, they simulate a giant silver snake, which will scare off even the most experienced predators. In certain sandy areas, where as a rule no plants or animals take up permanent residence, this goby took us quite by surprise. He probably just came out to make sure everything was in order nearby. But he wasn't alone. His little partner is a tireless worker, the blind digging crayfish, whose task seems to be to keep their domestic quarters in ship-shape order. The crayfish even decorates the entrance, which leaves us in awe, even wondering if the little guy with such acute architectonic instincts is really blind. But while the goby continues his surveillance rounds in defense of the fort, the crayfish shows us he is truly blind by probing for his pal with its antenna, just to make sure where he is. This is certainly a curious example of associative symbiosis between two very different zoological groups, so maybe peace is possible even underwater. In this kind of sandy location, we came upon an astonishing creature, the Pegasus fish. It's a relative of the seahorse, but this one is only 3 centimeters long. Its broad pectoral fins allow it to plane over sandy seabeds, where it's able to find nourishment. In this glorious sanctuary of life, we had a very unpleasant surprise. We had discovered a part of the reef that had been destroyed. When we surfaced, we saw some fishermen. Were they what we hoped they weren't? Unprincipled, ignorant poachers. Malaysians, Filipinos, Indonesians. They had been throwing dynamite and other explosives into the water to catch fish. Sometimes they use cyanide too, oblivious to the damage they cause. In a matter of seconds, these men destroy the work of millions of tiny creatures that have worked day after day over thousands of years. Where ecological destruction had yet to make its mark, we were privileged to come upon truly wondrous places, unspoiled reefs where Mother Nature has toiled for millions of years without disturbance. As we noted earlier, there are some 700 different species of coral in Rayampat, an unsurpassed figure on planet Earth. What looks like rivers is actually a system of canals traversing the islands. The light that penetrates through the jungle canopy makes these landscapes truly unique. The colors and life forms in this place are the result of the light that filters through the thick jungle. Stag coral grows in large colonies. These particular areas are the domain of only one species, which thrust forward like some kind of unstoppable army. They reproduce quickly and constantly, forming fabulous calcareous fortresses. They can even grow so large as to form an entire atoll. Of course, their enemies and disease pose constant threats to their very survival. Among the coral's enemies are the stoplight parrotfish. They break off the coral with the hard nodes they bear on their heads. They also have very strong jaws and teeth with which they eat the tiny animals that create and build coral out of the residue of the calcareous white reef sand. The same sand that covers all those fabulous beaches. Many vertebrate and invertebrate species play important roles in the ecology and environment of these exotic, extraordinary places, where life thrives in often unusual ways. No fewer than 1,100 different species of fish have been classified in these heavenly waters, the greatest number of marine species in any comparable area on the face of the planet. Many scientists and avid divers join us, the Blue Secret Team, in pleading for this beautiful part of the Earth to be declared a World Heritage Site and forever protected from human destruction. This almost invisible creature is the stonefish with its poisonous spines. Luck was on Leandro's side this time, as he managed to film this intimate moment with the mimetic frogfish. It has its own little fishing rod, bait and all, which it uses to attract unsuspecting little quarry towards its enormous jaws. Its all-purpose fins can work like legs, so it's able to cling on to coral branches, walk along the seabed, or swim. Brain coral is one of the most curious and interesting species on the reefs. Mushroom coral is very abundant. It inevitably draws a visitor's attention because of its enormous size and shape, that of a giant mushroom. In hollow places, mushroom coral can form several stories. Their colonies regularly have very unusual appearances, like strange futuristic cities. As we swam over them, we saw just how large some of these specimens were. Among the hard coral structures, we discovered a great variety of species and shapes. each one seemingly more beautiful and original than the one before. Thousands of eyes watched us, without our being aware that we were being carefully observed. Among the 700 species listed in the Raya Empat archipelago is the largest mollusk in the world. It's the Tridacna clam, measuring over 1 meter in length and weighing as much as 200 kilograms or more. These clamshells are so big that a child could easily fit inside one. The sinuous edges of their valves seal perfectly when they clam up, as it were. Once dreaded by scuba divers unfortunate enough to fall on one, they would snap their valve shut and trap the diver, who inevitably suffered broken extremities and a cruel death by drowning. Hollywood naturally created an exaggerated legend about these creatures. The Tridacna clam encrusts itself into the corals by using the sharp cutting edges of their shells. Its fleshy mantle and sensual interior is hardly complex. There's an orifice for breathing and another for eating and excreting. They ingest plankton and a necessary supply of oxygen at the same time. By way of this opening, they expel any residue of water or food, which is processed in their enormous stomachs. Unfortunately, these giant clams have disappeared from most of the places they once inhabited due to human greed and ignorance. The sea slug is a nudibranch. That's a fancy word meaning they have no gills during their larval stages. This little yellow structure is the eggs laid by the nudibranch. So colorful and strange, they seem to find their paradise here. Some flatworms even try to imitate them. After 2 weeks of diving, we were frankly surprised that we'd hardly seen any sharks. Apparently, foreign fishing fleets are essentially exterminating the world's shark populations. In fact, if things continue such as they are, it's thought that 80% of the ocean's sharks could become extinct, and to a significant degree, because of shark's fin soup, the trendy and popular delicacy enjoyed throughout Asia and elsewhere. However, the extermination of the most important ocean predators could have devastating consequences for marine life in general. It was then we remembered our dead shark, a sign of what we would come to find. This fisherman didn't realize that his trophy was a symbol of extinction. Well aware of the effort it would take, we were determined to find two of the most mysterious and little-known shark species. And we found the painted epaulette shark, which is similar to the European cat shark. Similarly small, it measures hardly 50 centimeters long. It can walk on the seabed using its fins. Another exciting discovery was this rare shark, the Wobbegong angel shark. A very interesting species, it was first identified by a scientist in 1788. Its skin fringes afforded remarkable mimetic ability used for camouflage along the seabed. This effect is magnified by special skin cells called chromatophores, which allow it to effortlessly change colors. As a rule, these sharks are not aggressive. However, their inoffensive appearance mustn't be taken for granted, for if provoked, they will bite with their sharp teeth and not let go, and suck till they can suck no more. A diver once surfaced with one locked on his arm, and they had to kill it before it would let go. And yet, they're so very elegant, especially when swimming, a truly beautiful sight. Angel sharks belong to a species between sharks and stingrays. This is the beautiful flamboyant epaulette ray. Its lovely yellow tones adorned with vivid blue spots is nature at its loveliest. We figured that if we were patient, we might be able to get real close and take a few pictures. We can clearly see how this beauty breathes through its nostrils. And how about those eyes? In the deep sea, drama is a daily reality. The old saw about how big fish eat small fish is still very much in vogue here. The food chain goes all the way down to microscopic life forms. Predators exist, so there must be prey, for otherwise life wouldn't be possible. Various different species of beautiful fish use the shoals as a defensive refuge. They live together as a unit and make the life of certain predators very difficult indeed. Schools of sergeant major fish are able to form different defensive shapes in an instant at the smallest sign of danger. We found this sea cucumber in a very unusual posture, pensive it seemed, erect, looking for a place to go perhaps? But no, these are veritable hoovers of plankton and sea soil. The enormous variety of species on Earth, each as remarkable as the next, is comprised in large part of large groupings of invertebrates, and the largest of these is the sea fan, also known by the name gorgonian. Far and away the most gargantuan of the world's invertebrates, they look like huge fans or bushes. These astonishing landscapes might suggest a copse of bushes, although these creatures unquestionably belong to the animal kingdom. Each specimen is actually a vast colony formed by thousands of small individuals. Like hard coral, they reproduce and form new branches, and these splendid works of art. We made sure to stay alert and be very observant of every centimeter. We didn't want to miss anything. And lo and behold, we discovered some very well camouflaged spies lurking in the branches. This tiny porcelain crab likes to take cover under sea cucumbers. The strength with which it propels itself is proportional to a human being lifting a railroad car. As we closed in on another little creature, we came upon this curious little stowaway, a tiny shrimp that uses this guy for protection. Why? Because bathing in its host's poisonous excrement wards off predators. The green mustache mantis shrimp likes to hide in out-of-the-way holes with a seashell to break up with its powerful claws. Its claws are so powerful, they can quite easily break a diver's finger. In this particular area, there are literally tons of shellfish, 34 unique scientifically classified species at present. Their iridescent eyes peek out like periscopes. They see everything in a 360-degree arc. Sea fans could certainly compete in a beauty contest with the most stunning coral structures. They look like huge fans made of matted lace. Yet these animal colonies are full of much greater surprises. Feathery boa-like protrusions decorate some of them. They're crinoideas, relatives of the starfish. They thrive by clinging to branches and waiting for food to float by. They fancy the branches of the giant basket starfish, whose arms are almost 2 meters long. Despite some very forceful and potentially dangerous currents, we dove down to 50 meters. We wanted more than just a quick look at those lovely sea fans. And as we got closer, we saw something truly astonishing. Clinging to a sea fan's tiny, delicate branch was an even more minuscule seahorse. It was hardly the size of a fingertip. Yet this little seahorse can change the shape of its head to hide from predators. We now know that this remarkable new species had been discovered in 2003 in this very area. On this day, a tremendous agglomeration of marine life prevented us from seeing the ocean floor. The coral reefs, along with the many other marine life forms, have grown for 6 decades to provide a protective coating for this sunken American warplane downed in battle. This shows how long nature needs to form a reef and mankind's potential for barbarity. But this fighter airplane has never been touched since that fateful day. Its deadly machine guns were silenced forever in the placid waters of the Pacific Ocean. There are many different species of sea anemones. These fertile waters allow sea anemones to develop particularly spectacular varieties of different colors, shapes, and sizes. Sea anemones generally have prodigious mantles of bristly, soft, yet stingingly effective appendages, all the while gently rocking to the rhythm of the ocean's currents. These thriving hydras are frequently found in a kind of loose association with other creatures, shrimp, crabs, and the brightly colored clownfish. Experienced guardians, these wardens of the deep serve to trim the injured or frail tentacles of the hydra, eating them really, so they can be regenerated and prevented from developing a more serious infection. They also rub up against the anemones and cautiously coat themselves with a thin layer of poisonous protection, which can kill most of the fish they'll likely encounter here, just in case. We explored quite a few underwater canyons, some truly awe-inspiring cliffs, and impressive mountain-like slopes. Life doesn't tend to teem in areas like these. Hiding places are harder to come by, more precarious perhaps, certainly harder for the naked eye to discover. The creatures that reside here tend to inhabit very tiny cracks or very large caves, while other passers-by seem content to just tool by and see the sights. Large schools of fish sometimes take refuge in places like this to get away from it all, or to feed in the relative calm amongst the cliffs and labyrinthine depths alongside the reefs. From our boat, our Papuan friends point out some frankly ghastly-looking caves. They said they were considered sacred here. We learned that once upon a time, native islanders used these caves to bury their loved ones, sometimes just what was left of them. For cannibalism was a widespread practice among the Papuans and several other native Pacific Island peoples. They believed that by eating their dead, they absorbed in a homeopathic kind of way the deceased's positive qualities. Some say it also afforded needed protein for the living in exchange for a relatively insignificant expenditure of energy. Whatever the case may be, key anthropological discoveries point to a clear evolution of such practices over time, up to the present day in fact. We were told that the most recent of these islanders' ancestors had been buried here about 100 years ago, and yet the vases appear relatively modern. We clearly recognized a Maastricht signature. With all due respect, we left the dead behind and rekindled our interest in the living. We took to shore to rest. The men in town have formed a fine little exotic band. The Papu guitar, they told us, was made by the man playing it. The Spanish guitars and lute all sounded remarkably good. So we couldn't help but join in and play a song with them. But of course, we were also interested in exploring the nightlife on the reef, certain to be both surprising and enlightening. As soon as the sun had so serenely, so splendidly succumbed to the night, we readied our equipment and headed out to sea. At night, on the ocean, darkness pervades one's senses. The experience is, to say the least, uniquely thrilling. For you can see the spotlight's reflections on the surface, but what does that mysterious veil conceal? In the absence of daylight, the reef takes on a totally different character when illuminated like this. In the darkness, we were frightened by a rock. The thorn-crowned starfish is one of the coral reef's worst enemies. The creatures who thrive by day are asleep now. Our powerful searchlights illuminate small areas practically as if it were day. Some of the fish allow us to get close enough to see surprisingly vivid details. The nurse shark shies away from the artificial light. This seashell might be said to have a somewhat perturbing look. It has a hook allowing it to swivel around when lying face up. Certain other creatures resort to fairly curious tricks. At the entrance to this small cave, a parrotfish has woven strands of mucus. This is its way of making its hideaway look uninhabited and duping many a potential predator. We also came upon an interesting mollusk that is unique to this part of the world, the bobtail squid. Bobtail squid have the ability to instantly change the shape of their outer skin in order to easily trap prey with their agile tentacles. Discovering the secrets of the deep in the dark of night is twice as exciting when you don't know exactly what you're going to find. We were very fortunate to happen upon a green turtle, for they're almost extinct now. A dead, apparently uninhabited seashell suggested a past tragedy. But suddenly, its new lodger emerged, a very ostentatious hermit crab. It seems everything gets put to good use in nature, recycled or transformed somehow. Amongst the reef's multicolored contours, a crocodile scorpionfish gave us a show of its truly fascinating mimetic abilities, and then let us get a close-up look at it. Remarkably subtle anatomical detail, tiny ectospikes, and nodes like the ones we'd seen on certain kinds of seaweed and other creatures we'd observed along the reef. The red scorpionfish belongs to the same family as the crocodile scorpionfish. But it chooses to hunker down on the ocean floor to avoid detection. Its large eyes are well designed for acute night vision. All through our last dive, in fact, we could hardly help noticing him watching us. Our tanks were practically out of air, and as we surfaced, the sun was just below the horizon. Our eyes, our souls, were brimming with the beauty of the life we had just seen. These glorious isles were mistaken for warships and bombed during the Second World War. Will we ever learn? I only hope that the children's songs we heard and their smiles won't be shattered by the greed of the more powerful.